Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, Kevin Maguire and Andrew Pearce are here to talk us through the papers. And
I'm not going to harumph about gender identity.
It's all right. We won't. Are we doing that story?
No. Just
so
well,
we can
I'd be harumphing about it.
Okay. Well, we can ignore it then,
Ludicrous.
can't we?
Why are you harumphing?
Because it's ridiculous. Gender identity.
Well, people have, people identify.
Yeah, they're men or women.
Not everybody feels that way now.
So,
if ever.
the poll.
The poll, this is a very interesting poll in the Telegraph. It's part of their regular series analysed by Linton Crosby, Sir Linton, of course, who masterminded the Tories' general election victory last year. And it shows for the first time, according to this poll, I have to say we have to be sceptical of some polls because they didn't exactly cover themselves in glory last summer. And this does surprise me because it's saying for the first time a majority of older voters, Conservative supporters and men are backing the campaign to stay in the EU. Now, this follows the massive bombardment by Cameron and Osborne, Project Fear, and the IMF and everybody else getting stuck in. But the lead now, according to this poll, Remain is 13 points, which is the biggest so far. Among all voters, the Remain campaign now has a 20-point lead, with 58% of voters saying they back the pro-EU campaign. So the only area of encouragement, according to this poll, for Leave is immigration, which is still seen as a huge issue by a lot of voters, because that's the only way you're going to get any chance of controlling immigration is if we leave.
All polls should have a big health warning after the election, or this is a binary choice. I don't remember you putting the health warnings on when polls were showing Leave ahead, but nevertheless,
no, I probably did.
This is a big turnaround now, as Linton Crosby says, and that 13-point lead. It did feel last week as if Leave were losing it. Boris Johnson going a bit bananas over his claim that you couldn't sell them in bunches of 4 or more lie. I think his £350 million claim, that's what we send to Brussels every week down his bus, has just been exposed as another lie. I think even people like Nigel Farage won't use that figure. Then you had the row over migration and Turks where they overstated it and pushed it too far, so it became a lie. But when Brexit have lost the elderly, men and Tories, they were their 3 core constituencies to win this. And
actually, the Telegraph says a previous poll in March, all 3 of those crucial voter sets voted for Brexit. This is the first time those 3. These 3 crucial groups have actually said they want to stay in the EU.
There were polls at the weekend showing Tories swinging to Brexit. But if you're across those 3, and of course this poll could be wrong, could be a rogue poll, there's still 4 and a bit weeks to go, a lot of debate, a lot of arguing, a lot more fear from both sides. We've got a lot more scaremongering and demonisation and depressing misuse of facts and figures to come along. So it could change. But it did feel last week as if it was shifting. And some people have waited decades for this referendum and it's slipping away from them.
Yeah. To be fair, we've had a lot of tweets in saying, us older voters are absolutely furious about this, that and the other. And still, a large proportion of older voters are those that will definitely head to the polls because they feel so strongly.
And young people are apparently more in favour of staying in the EU, but a lot of them aren't even registered to vote.
But it's who turns out on the day.
A lot of the young people aren't even registered to vote, and there is a big worry in the Remain camp that the differential in turnout will massively benefit Leave.
There was a Universities UK poll, I think, at the weekend, which found that something like 2/3 of students didn't know the referendum's on June 23rd, which is a bit worrying.
Aren't they meant to be educated?
But just anecdotally, I've found more and more people who are, you'd call them Eurosceptics, who are very critical of the EU, very suspicious of Brussels. Don't like free movement,
but you know what?
But they will vote. They will vote in.
It could all change because tomorrow Tony Blair's going to intervene and use an interview to say why we should stay in the EU. That's got to be worth 2 or 3 points at least for Leave.
Gotta be. The Daily Express.
Well, you see,
this is also surprising that women, mothers, will vote to leave the EU.
And yet most people had assumed prior to this poll in the Telegraph that mothers were the ones most likely to vote to stay because they preferred the status quo.
Unfortunately, we can't see any figures on that too.
It's a Netmunds poll of more than 2,000.
Yeah, and you hadn't heard about Netmunds until an hour ago, had you?
I thought
we like to inform and educate, don't we? If it is our guests.
Elucidate.
What about the backlash? Daily Mail, knives are out for Cameron. Tories threatening a confidence vote.
They are. You hear a lot of Tory MPs, including those who are in the Remain camp. Some reluctant, but they're in the Remain camp. Some who actually believe in it, just feel he's over-egged it and not done very well. And according to the Mail here, dozens are going to demand that he sets a date when he's going to be off. He'll resist that. If he loses, he's out straight. If he wins, he could be like Louis van Gaal. He could get the cup and then still be sacked at some
What's going to happen at the victory parade for Manchester United? Will they invite their former manager, Louis van Gaal?
I think he's in Portugal now.
Oh, is
so
he?
anyway, we're talking about this. So there is Cameron said he'd be gone before the next election, so we know his days are numbered. This
It
is
could
so
be like
bloody.
Blair, that he could be forced out sooner than he wants
Yeah,
to.
the only way, probably their only chance of pulling the Tory party back together, which is going to be very, very difficult, is to have somebody else in number 10.
And he's bringing this on himself, because just as recently as September, he made a speech where he said he could envisage life outside the EU would be fine, we'd get by, and now he's talking about World War III, God, send for your gas masks. He's talking about 820,000 jobs are going to be lost. Where does that figure come from?
Yeah, but when the polls get closer and closer, and obviously tonight maybe that's switched, but when they get close, you've got to fight as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, but don't lie, don't distort the arguments.
Yeah,
that is what is upsetting so many Tory MPs. They sent a document to every single home in the country at a cost of nearly £10 million. Unfair, because the Leave side didn't get the same opportunity, and it's all skewed. He's been using the Treasury because he says it's government policy. Yeah. So he cooks these figures up from the Treasury, which says we will have a recession, but he doesn't say it would be the slightest recession we've had in decades. It's barely a recession at all.
I think the greatest onus, to be straight and honest, should be on a Prime Minister, whichever party is in power. Man. But let's not pretend your vote Leave lot have fought by the Queensberry rules. They've lied and lied and lied, and they've come up with as much fear as the Remain. What's depressing about it is that this is really just a rerun of the Conservative election campaign last May, which is very successful, but you've got the two sides splitting. You've got Osborne and Cameron on one side, and you've got Johnson and Gove on the other, but they're using the same tactics of fear, and that's what they did very successfully against Ed Miliband and Labour.
Well, we were right to be frightened of Ed Miliband and Nicola Sturgeon.
But you don't oppose...
Scared.
You don't
hiding behind the back of the sofa.
You don't oppose dirty politics on principle. You're just opposing the dirty politics that's against you, while you're quite happy with the dirty politics that benefits you.
No, it's demeaning for the Prime Minister to be carrying on like this. He's the Prime Minister, for heaven's sake. Stop treating the country like children.
So if the only way to bring the blue-on-blue action to an end, if I can put it like that, after the referendum, if it is won by David Cameron, is for him to go, is the other way of doing it some sort of unity reshuffle? Is that on the cards,
I think it probably is on the cards.
And so who would get promoted then?
Well, he'd have to... Does he punish Boris or does he reward Boris?
Well, then if it's unity reshuffle,
he's going to reward him.
Yeah.
But does he punish Penny Mordaunt, who was incredibly rude about on the television yesterday, the Armed Forces Minister, or does he...
Well, you lose the people you don't have to save for face-saving.
Well, you'd probably say bye-bye to Chris Grayling, the Leader of the House, and some of the others.
Chris Grayling's bag was effectively packed last time when he got Leader of the House. He survived, didn't he? But from Justice Secretary, where he was useless.
Michael Gove will stay where he is, but there's speculation Michael Gove could become Deputy Prime Minister.
Right. And what about the Sun then? Never mind the... I nearly said it.
Well, that's more of the same, but this time it's the campaign is against Osborne, Ozzy Osborne.
Yeah. Shall we see him?
Yeah.
Shall I show?
Yeah.
You're going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Okay,
I'll do
rocker.
it. There we are.
Yeah. That's actually a better look. He hasn't got that much hair now, has he?
That's from the young ones, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And this is the dossier where he said 820,000 jobs will go, which I think is a fiction. I don't know where that figure comes from. Where do they get the 20,000
It's from Treasury Modelling.
Yeah, isn't it?
Which was peer-reviewed by a former Deputy Governor.
The truth is, this report's more solid than some of the fantasy
but I would just
tissue
remind
paper
people
brought out.
Last week, or was it the week before, we discovered, after a series of FOIs of the Treasury, they finally fessed up that 880,000 national insurance numbers have been issued to Eastern Europeans, which we hadn't known about until then. 820,000 jobs, 880,000 national insurance numbers. One cancels out the other.
Right, it's a nice concept front page. It's bright, it's colourful, it's funny. It has a political message which chimes with the sun. I mean, I've heard Tory MPs say far worse than that. In fact,
so have I.
Nicholas Soames, who's a Remainer all the time,
and it doesn't begin with B.
His colleagues. But this referendum is going to prove very difficult for the papers on the right, because we have a Tory press, as Ken Clarke says, that won out. What do they do? Because they could be on the losing side of this. That's why the Mail's having a go at Cameron now. The Sun's having a go at Osborne, because you can look powerless if you chuck everything you can for a Leave campaign. That's what's been happening. And then all of a sudden you're on the losing side. The Mail doesn't mind being on the losing side. You kind of take a more principled position, because I remember you lost in the 3 general elections, Labour won. But the Sun has always wanted to back the winner. And they will now be very frightened here that they've been leave. If it's going to be Remain, let's see if when push comes to shove at the end, they don't actually back Leave.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose.
4 weeks to go.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right.
All to play for. And let's not forget, again, the pollsters got it very badly wrong last summer.
A lot to play for.
What about Austria, how this plays in to the migration?
Well, this is immigration. This is the biggest vote in an EU state for a far-right leader. He lost by a wafer-thin margin.
0.6%.
Yeah, and the Green Party won instead. So this is another massive anti-mainstream political party vote. But this is all about immigration. He ran it as an Austria First manifesto, and it's
Norbert Hofer is a very nasty piece of work, though. He's not just an Islamophobe or anti-migrant. He doesn't particularly like gay people.
No, really. Austria, of course, sided with Merkel in the first days of the open doors policy, and thousands of refugees passed through Austria onto Germany.
So will this change policy? Will it change attitudes at all? That a country like Austria gets very close to
another warning
an ugly past,
it's another warning to the European elite that people are fed up to the back teeth of the immigration problem.
People have known this for years. That's why the Schengen Agreement was suspended in parts of Europe.
Yeah, and it's why border controls are going up all over Europe.
And
they're sick of it.
And there's a huge humanitarian disaster on the doorstep of Europe, over the Mediterranean, in the Middle East. Biblical movements of people, millions of people on the move, a lot of them fleeing terror and oppression, risk of death. Others are economic migrants, but coming from really poor areas where life is very, very tough. And you can understand why they want to move. There was, incidentally, a report last week which showed that they will benefit the European economy in the long run, short-term cost, but they work hard and contribute, just like all the migrants who have come to Britain do.
I get the impression the migration argument is what we will be hearing for the next few weeks.
Well, you might
they'll be saving their powder.
Well, official vote Leave have lost on the economy. I think they've lost on security. Maybe they'll all of a sudden embrace Comrade Farage and go on that.
Why wouldn't they?
Well, they haven't so far, have they? They've tried to shun him.